Good timing. Here with Ben Foerg from The Absurd, Bent New Records, drummer for Karma Vulture and Shedonist. This has been what I've been looking forward to for a long time. Thanks for being here, man.
Hell yeah. Thank you for having me, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. I guess I got your joint. Yeah.
So are you from LA originally?
No, I'm from the great land of Detroit.
Okay.
It's a lovely city. So
Rock City.
Rock City, yeah, and nothing else. It's it's home. I love it, but it is it's a rough spot. I'm from the suburbs, so not as rough, but my dad had a place downtown, place to work, so I grew up working down there and kind of just ingrained with the city. Love it there, great people, just a rough spot. So then I moved to Colorado after I got done with college.
Right on.
Spent a little bit of time in Denver, Boulder, that area. Then I skirted around the country, then went out to LA, and then got very fucking sick of that place very fucking quickly, and then now I'm in Nashville.
Well, we're very glad to have you here.
I am so glad to be here. It is hard for me to even express it. I'm not even kidding, man. I've felt like an outcast my entire life. I've never felt really comfortable anywhere. Nashville is the first place that I can safely say I'm like,
Fuck yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I'm just down with the vibe of this place. Yeah.
We get all types here.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
Because in Los Angeles, it was a bullshit monoculture. Not everybody's the same, but so many people think and believe the exact same crap, and it's just obnoxious. And here, what I've noticed is because you have so many different types of people, there's a forged tolerance for differences of opinion.
Yeah.
You have to be able to interact with people who might disagree with you, you know? Even though I'm sure, like we were talking about before we got on, there's a little bit of a lack of independence of thought and critical thought, but that's the case anywhere.
Well, I mean, and I don't think it's not a new thing out there, because in the 80s, it's funny when you're talking about looking the same or not everybody is that. It brings up, trying to remember, it might have been Circle Jerks. I could be misquoting it.
Nice.
There's a song, the lyrics is about Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills, Century City, everyone there so clean and pretty. All the people look the same. Don't they know they're so damn lame?
That sounds like something the Circle Jerks would do.
It could have been a joke. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah.
Research that one out.
Someone will find it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so what's weird is, as a musician, you know, before I even got there, I mean, Los Angeles is really where I cut my teeth musically, you know, and that was great because it cut me down a couple pegs real fast. So I had to learn, and, you know, it established sort of a modesty where you really appreciate musicianship. I mean, you really have to kind of prove yourself. It's the fucking bog more than the swamp. It's so many people and so much competition, saturation. But pretty soon you start to learn that it's not just Beverly Hills and Century City. It's Santa Monica. It's Silver Lake. It's Echo Park. It's the whole damn place. And and the industry, the entertainment industry, is just a monolith.
Yeah.
And if you, crazy enough, so much as wear an American flag T-shirt, they will start calling you names.
It's really not cool to be patriotic in America.
Yeah,
it's like
not in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I forget that what we're shown in the media is not representative of how people think at all in this country. Because it's like, oh, these are the opinions you see online. It's like, wait a minute, none of those are real people.
Yeah. Right. Well, a lot of
those
it
aren't
has
real
to do
opinions
with marketing. You know, years and years ago, news and information was about the popular thought because they wanted to find out what everybody was thinking to sell them that. Now they're trying to tell you what to think because they already have what they want to sell you.
Yeah, and you're a piece of shit if you don't think this way.
Right. So, you know, if you don't buy this product or idea, then you're obviously on the out.
Which makes no sense because from a marketing perspective, aren't you supposed to, like, I don't know, are you supposed to cater to the biggest market or, like, find out what most people want and kind of...
It's what I've always said, the amazing thing
from a business point
about,
of view, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
The oddest thing that I hear from people that scream about democracy is democracy is majority rule, and most people screaming about democracy are talking about minority.
Yep, absolutely. Cater to the minority,
Which is not
which
democracy.
I think, it's not that I would think don't help people of less fortune.
For sure.
But I'm all against caste and categorization.
Yeah.
When you put people in that box, then all of a sudden you've got to, well, are you helping them? Well, then you can't decide where.
Well, and those people who scream about, the people who most vociferously scream about democracy at this point from the left are the people who, in my opinion, are fascists, totalitarians, authoritarians.
Yeah.
They don't know what democracy is, or they do know what democracy is, but they don't understand the difference between democracy and a republic and the reasons that the founding of this country established a republican system instead of a democratic system. It's elements of democracy, but there's a very good reason for why direct democracy is not what we do here. There are places where you do direct democracy. That's your local elections and stuff like that.
Small democratic. You have systems that are democratic.
Yes,
but the idea of a democracy relieves freedom, because when you are forced to do the majority, then you're not able to do what you want, and a republic still allows you the freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
If it's written into the Constitution.
Yeah,
which it is.
Well, it's tyranny of the majority, right? Alexis de Tocqueville. It's one of the most. I remember. So when the world started breaking in 2016.
The latest crack in the
yeah, I was gonna say it's been breaking for a long time.
Like 2001, maybe.
Well, I think it's like the bells cracks in different spots.
Yeah,
and this last one was a real.
It was like a death knell.
Big ugly one.
It was, man. And I mean, so that was the first time where I started getting shit on by people who I always thought were my friends. Like, I mean, maybe we were never friends, but like, we ran in the same circles. Right. We were playing music together.
They never shit on you before.
No, never. Right. If anything, they would try to play with me at shows and stuff like that. And then I started getting, kind of blacklisted pretty quickly thereafter. Could have had something to do with the fact that my band, The Absurd, put out an album called Build the Wall. Because fuck you. And if you don't listen to the lyrics and get what I'm talking, like, it's not at all, it's not like some pro-Trump thing, and I'm not even talking about Trump here. It's called Build the Wall because it's the most obvious thing to say fuck you.
Yeah, it's tongue-in-cheek, for sure.
Exactly. It's punk rock. Like,
well, I mean, it's the same thing as punkers in the 70s wearing a star and sickle. They weren't going for socialism.
No.
They were not socialists at all. They're mainly anarchists. They just wore that because they knew it pissed off everybody, especially in England.
That's exactly right.
If you walked around with a red Russian shirt and star and sickle, it wasn't like, I believe in this. It was going, fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm going to wear the most offensive thing. A lot of them, some of them would put on swastikas and had no ties with any want to be like Nazis. They did it strictly to be a fuck you to society. When they're walking down the street, people are like, oh my God. And that's literally what they were going for.
So, and comparatively, what you did is really tame.
Well, so that was the entire joke. So let me give you the short backstory of the joke. So originally, I wanted, because I grew up kind of thinking that shit was cool, because fuck you, because that's just, if you have the kind of punk rock in you, you have it in you. Right. You'll spend your whole life trying to kind of be nice, tame it down a little bit, like control it. Mm-hmm. So I originally wanted to do the hammer and sickle or the swastika or something like that. Cancel me all you want. I don't give a shit. Like, I originally wanted to, but then my band wouldn't let me do it for one. For another, I realized that it wouldn't really be apropos of the times anyway. Mm-hmm. So we kind of came up with this idea of, we put out this album, and we just kind of started leaning hard into the America stuff, because we noticed in Los Angeles, like I said, if you're wearing an American flag, it's kind of like wearing a hammer and sickle back then, right. Which in and of itself is a statement.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make a statement with my music other than, like, if you're not viewing this as like kind of looking into a funhouse mirror, that you're offended by me wearing the flag that your country, represents your country, you have something wrong with you.
That's just a little absurd.
It's So we did a residency at this place called the Satellite in Los Angeles. It was very successful.
Satellite. That's where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Alice. So we did a residency, and that's basically every Monday for a month. We did really, really well with it, but we decided to make it as America-themed as we possibly could, which resulted in us getting the best turnout that venue had seen in 2.5 years, it also, it was like a 1950s political campaign rally kind of thing. It was just like America bunting, balloons, hot dogs over there, Budweiser's, like a General Patton size American flag. Like there was a Gadsden flag right when you come in. Yeah, just
America,
fuck yeah. So, and like, I know the first night we did it, one of the chicks who was playing with us comes in and goes, that flag is racist, right? And I was like, which one? She goes, that one. She was pointing at the Gadsden flag. I'm like, do you know who created that flag? She goes, yeah, the Tea Party used it. And I'm like, Benjamin fucking Franklin, dude, it was the American Revolution. Don't tread on me is referring to taxation by the English monarchy. That's what it is. Don't take away my liberties. Like, that's where that flag comes from. And just doing cheeky shit like that, the problem that I didn't really anticipate was, like, I'm playing with their emotions such to the point that, like, they're getting really, really mad, and I don't necessarily have the opportunity to explain myself. Never really gave a fuck. But it did result in me getting 86 from, like, several venues and shit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you are a little bit, like, aware of this already, but that's a thing here, too, a little bit. Probably not as bad. But
it's definitely here.
It's getting better, but we have our fair share of closed-mindedness and like clickiness.
Yeah, the clickiness here has always been an issue.
Yeah,
it's just flown with whatever the latest fashion is. I think it was I'm gonna misquote or I'm gonna misname early Nashville rapper.
Upchurch?
No. Early Nashville. I'll look him up, Alice. He says Nashville ain't nothing but a fashion show.
I like that.
Yeah, it was.
That's I'm gonna look it up so I don't misquote it, and you can look it up later, Alice.
So you said you really cut your teeth with music in LA.
Yeah.
What is it? Did you move out there for music?
Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, like back in Detroit, was music in the house? Like when you were a kid?
No, not really. Well, I shouldn't say no. I had my parents are not musical. My grandpa, however, was a music teacher at a Catholic school around there. Yes, I'm Catholic. I'm sorry.
We forgive you.
Yes, thank you. I need forgiveness because the Catholic Church is one of the most fucked institutions in the world. But and I'm not particularly religious. I just Catholic in name. So I didn't really have music around. My parents did not discourage me, though. They didn't necessarily encourage it. Well, they did, actually. In fifth grade, they give you an instrument. I got the trombone because it was the most obnoxious, like, just,
yeah.
Well, I like that thing. And they wouldn't let me play the drums because they were too loud. So I ended up getting a drum set the next year anyway. Drums were my first instrument. A guitar happened through the house at some point, I think from my aunt or something, just kind of drifted through. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like self-taught on everything. I did see my grandpa a lot growing up, my papa, and he's a Polish guy. And he would show me things every now and then, but not a ton, So I would kind of ask questions and stuff like that, which was great. But really, I just, when I was a really young kid, I loved sounds and noises. So I would always be walking around making dumb noises with, just like really, really annoying the crap out of my parents. So I think they couldn't fight getting me an instrument. And then I just found out, when I was 5, I cried when I heard Elton John's Can You Feel the Love Tonight? There's an embarrassing anecdote. But I just knew that music kind of affected me in such a way.
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept with it and was self-led for most of it.
That's it.
Yeah. And I've learned quickly that, like, when you find players better than you, you should go ask them how they're try to emulate what they're doing. Yeah. So yeah.
I appreciate what you were saying about like when you get into it too, it's like it's humbling. It's like you have to find your voice, and like it's not enough. That's I know a lot of artists, and it's not just enough to want it. You can want it more than anyone, but you have to. There's so much work involved. It's both.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things, like, I guess it was good for me to be in LA because the standards are fairly high there. Like, there's so many people that if you want to go play a crappy show with some, and there was, when I was there, which was 2015 to 2021, late 2021. So when I was there was definitely a scene of just like the worse you play, the better, you know, just kind of like shitty, you know, indie punk, but it's not punk because they're all just, you know, they ended up wear your mask and all that crap. And so to me, it was like, okay, we can get away playing with them, but then I would look at the better players and I'm like, yeah, but I want to be them. Like you know, if I want to make noise and kind of play simplistic stuff sloppily, I want to be good enough that I can do that.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Right.
But I don't want to be so bad that I can't do the shit I hear in my head. And the shit I hear in my head is like, I listened to a lot of classical music growing up. Again, my parents didn't listen to it. I just heard it and was like, oh my God, there's so much going on. It's beautiful. And like, they would, you know, it's fascinating music from a theoretical perspective, from an emotional perspective. It's like, it's more like the novel, whereas a song is like a poem, you know? And so, I just always wanted to do that stuff. But then if you do want to be the best, which I do, you have to be willing to get cut down to size and make an ass of yourself and look like an idiot and take shit. I mean, because the ego is like the number one thing that kills artists, really human beings, probably.
Sure.
But it kills artists in particular because they get so wrapped up in what they're doing and convinced that they're the best and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, now you're never going to make anything interesting because you're not humble or honest enough with yourself. So it's not really going to resonate with other people because you have nothing to say. You think you're tough, you know, top shit. You think your shit doesn't stink. Meanwhile, other people are like going to their shitty 9-to-5 job and getting their browbeat every day and getting their confidence shattered. They're trying to relate to something, and you're just coming walking in going, I'm the shit, you know, like, boo.
Well, some people also suffer from thinking that they have to try to get there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's on the other side of that where they're like, well, I'm not good enough because I'm not the best, or I'm not this. And, you know,
I see what you're saying.
Once you get into, you know, there's levels of, you know, Alex and I talk about this a lot when it comes to, you know, we'll listen to different music. And when I'll say, you know, if I say Jimi Hendrix, greatest guitar player ever.
Sure.
That's, I try to make sure I say greatest, not best.
Not best, yeah.
Because with music and pretty much any art, there's a certain level of doing it, or a certain aspect of doing it that it's not even supposed to go into that realm of better or best.
I agree.
You know, I kind of don't. I kind of think, like, I get what you're saying. I understand the argument, but I think some art is objectively better than other art.
I agree with that too. Well, here's the way I've put it in the past. Like, I mean, okay, if we're going to like classical musicians, I usually use Beethoven and Mozart, but find a comparable guitarist in skill to Hendrix. There really aren't any. But
Hendrix said that Terry Kath from Chicago was better than he was.
Okay, so let's say we're talking,
and listen to Terry Kath play.
Yeah. So let's say we're talking who's like the greatest guitarist.
Right.
You can say best, but let's use your word greatest. Terry Kath and Jimi Hendrix, to me, are kind of like Mozart and Beethoven, where you're just like, you're talking about your favorite at a certain point because they both
they're on the same level.
There's an there's a lower limit, and beyond that, mortals like us don't understand it. Right. However, we can objectively say they're better than the guitarist from Weezer.
I agree.
You know,
you put that very eloquently. Right. Yeah. That's it. They're in the same class for sure. If you want to split hairs, now it's an opinion. Mm-hmm. They're better than.
Then you also get into the idea of guitarist. Musician
versus musician,
or artist, or entertainer.
Did you ever see Midnight in Paris? That movie?
Yeah.
It's the fucking weird, creepy pedophile guy directed it. Woody Allen.
I don't think I've seen that Woody Allen.
He's
actually. I didn't know Woody Allen directed that.
He directs great movies. I just had to get the jab in, you know.
That's
that's a good good point and a good example of don't let the artist ruin their own art.
Art, not art.
Yeah.
I'm studying the art. I mean, fucking Wagner wrote some great symphonies.
I'm reading.
Really didn't like the Jews.
I'm reading The Prince by Machiavelli
I
now.
love that book.
And I'm like, I mean, Machiavelli's probably not the best person.
No, he's
but this is a great
cynical.
book.
Yeah. No, Machiavelli is a crazy guy, but
man, look at Pimp, Iceberg Slim.
yeah, not a good guy.
Phenomenal,
excellent book.
The book to change your life.
Well, okay, so two points. One is Midnight. Okay, so first, Andrew Clavin, conservative commentator for Daily Wire, very conservative guy. However, he said what conservatives need to understand to start winning the culture war, and I'm not conservative particularly. I'm libertarian, probably sort of anarchist sympathizer. But
yeah, so you're in the middle of us. I'm a libertarian. He's an anarchy boy.
Okay, yeah, I'm probably in the middle.
He doesn't like ist.
Well, I'm good. Well, I'm in good company in that case. Yeah. But okay, so he was saying basically conservatives, if they want to make headway in the culture war, need to understand that artists, they may live crazy lives, they might not be the best people, but there's something about that produces art that leaves an impact on people, and conservatives are too focused on being a good person, being buttoned up, et cetera, so the art they produce is reflective.
Interesting.
Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't imbue art with your values. You should. But there's so much more concerned with like personal responsibility and blah, 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 that the emphasis on art isn't there. Second point is Midnight in Paris, harkening back to what we were saying before. There's a scene in there, you don't even really need to know the plot. The main character is basically talking about the distinction between artist and painter. He's comparing Matisse to Picasso. And he says Matisse was the better painter, but Picasso was the better artist.
Yeah.
Which is that point always stuck with me. And you probably haven't seen that because it's like,
I think I've heard that line before.
Yeah, it's a great line because it's true. It's reflective of something. What I've always wanted to do, partially because I know I'm never going to be the best guitarist or drummer or whatever, I've always wanted to be the best artist. I've always wanted to have as many tools at my disposal to be able to get whatever it is inside out, and make some kind of impact.
Well, man, you do that. You do that very well.
Yeah, thank you.
The Absurd, Alice, if you're not aware, they go fucking hard and they'll tear the fucking house down.
Yes.
But Ben does softer singer-songwriter stuff with the Ben Foerg band, which is also just fucking kicks ass, man.
I mean,
you're very versatile as an artist.
Softer as in an Iggy and the Stooges cover. Out.
Do you know how I got that one too? I tuned down to Dadgad for one of my songs that I was doing, and I was stoned, and I hit the wrong chord accidentally. Then I was like, wait a second. Down, now I wanna.
Nice.
You ever heard Slayer's version of that?
Dude, yes. A while ago, though.
Yes.
That's pretty fucking cool.
They do a phenomenal cover album.
I've heard a couple covers by them. I didn't know they had a whole album.
That's what it was. That's what it's from then. They do a couple of Minor Threat songs.
Huh.
They do D.I. as Richard hung himself, and it is fucking great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So...
Is Slayer a big... A lot of people like Slayer down here. It was not popular in Los Angeles.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is because they tended to not really follow everybody's narrative politically.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not really what they were now anyway because, Hanneman R.I.P. and Lombardo doesn't like to play with them anymore. Really, so anyway,
I want to take a hard segue now.
Fuck yeah, hard segue.
The last time we were talking about universal truths.
Yes, I was hoping you would bring that up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you said something that really I've been thinking about it a lot since then. Is I was critiquing Socrates. I think therefore I am. That was Socrates, wasn't it?
No, that's Descartes.
Is that Descartes?
Mm-hmm. That's
you're right.
Cookie dough. Yeah.
I
think that there's a lot to criticize in that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like that's such a nonsense statement. That's so floaty. It doesn't say anything.
So it's been a while since I've read First Meditations. So it's Descartes' First Meditations on Philosophy. That's the book that it's from. The story of Descartes. So now I do have a soft spot for Descartes. I think a spart is a type of fart that's a little wet, maybe.
Oh, okay.
It's what
that makes sense.
It's not quite a shart.
Yeah.
So I have a soft spot for Descartes because when I read him, he was one of the first philosophers that I actually spent time with. Before I found him, I had found Socrates, I found Aristotle, a lot of the Greeks. I found some of the Germans. Didn't make my way to the French for some reason. And now I understand I wasn't missing much. But Descartes' story of how he came to that is he was in the military. They were on a mission, 1700 sometime. And he decides, because they have a holiday, to go stay in this cabin. And for some reason, he's obsessed with this idea of how you can know that you know anything at all, basically. Mm-hmm. So what he does is he goes to this cabin by himself, secluded in the woods, all fucking French and romantic. And, because it has to be,
Yeah.
He's René Descartes. And so he goes out there and he's thinking about how he can possibly come to have any knowledge about knowledge itself. So it's essentially one of the first really interesting exercises in epistemology. Not necessarily the first, but in modern, like, Renaissance, Enlightenment thought, that's kind of where it is. And so he says, the only way I can think to do this is to abandon all of my assumptions, including the fact that I exist. Mm-hmm. That's why his resolution to the whole thing is I think, therefore I am, because he was trying to answer how he knows he exists. So he says, well, because I'm thinking, he establishes that there must be something outside of himself, because otherwise he doesn't have a referent. Like the theory of relativity thing, Einstein, if you're, it's not, when Einstein was on the train, it's not that the moon was moving backwards. Mm-hmm. It's that he was moving forwards, and therefore the moon looked like it was moving backwards. So Descartes says, well, since I can perceive these things, and I know that I'm somehow separate from these things, there must be another thing. And also I am perceiving these things, therefore I'm thinking. So if I'm perceiving these things and these things exist aside from me, I must exist.
So thank you for breaking that down, because I didn't know the history of that. That's really cool. Where I'm taking issue with that is I think that's also an assumption. It could all just be an illusion.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So the answer to solipsism is fuck you.
Yeah. It might be right. It doesn't help anyone.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, because I've thought about this so much, So, the people don't know the conversation that we had, which was a very good one. And it was one of those little golden moments where it was like, man, I just made that make sense really well, and I'll never fucking be able to do that again. But essentially, I was thinking about it kind of on the way over here, I think, because I was like, well, I'm going to do a podcast with him. The last really good conversation we had was that. So I was thinking maybe, like, it's an interpolation kind of thing. If you're trying to figure out how you can establish whether or not there's absolute truth or knowledge, you can approach it from an epistemological direction or maybe an ethical question. Although I think you need to start with epistemology, because you can't really have ethics if you can't know anything.
And I don't want to cut you off if this is where you're headed, but you actually gave me a universal truth that I was like, well, shit. I think therefore I am is not, but that is.
What did I give you?
1 + 1 = 2.
Yes. Okay. That's where I was going with it.
That is like, how do you argue that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, even without people, without perception.
He brought that up to me after the fact. He was like, man, I had this conversation.
Did you ever refute?
Huh?
Did you ever
refute?
No.
I was just kind of,
listening. Yeah.
It was kind of one of those like semantical points, but Jasmine did say actually 1 + 1 = 3.
Yep. And that's, dude,
when
you hear somebody say that, you know that they do not have a firm footing in reality. Love you, Jasmine.
I don't think she meant it too literally.
No, she didn't. She was playing devil's advocate, which is what they teach you to do at Berkeley School of Philosophy. And again, love you, Jasmine. If we had not had this conversation a million times already, I would not feel at liberty to say either of those things, which could be construed as mean, but I'm a very nice guy. So I think it has to be an interpolation, because, I must have brought up Hume's problem of induction. If I didn't, I'll bring it up now.
Yeah.
Hume's problem of induction is, I think Hume is actually 1600s. Later 1600s.
Induction?
Induction. So
I know that is a
electrical thing.
Electrical,
Yes,
and physics and all that.
It's derived from the same thing.
Okay.
So
that's why I'm sparked up on those.
Yeah, sparked up, huh?
Speaking of sparked up, you could keep chiefing that.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, chief away, man.
Hey, well, sometimes our guests get a little drifty if I hand it to them too much.
Oh, I won't smoke too much of it. I know myself very well at this point. I used to smoke a shit ton of weed, and I still smoke, I would say, every day, every other day ish, but not a lot. Yeah. So, problem of induction is essentially, again, addressing why you can, or how, I suppose, you can know something. The answer to the problem of induction is inconclusive. And so it's sort of a jab against epistemological truth, I suppose. The example he kind of uses is if you're hitting a pool ball, like we all expect the sun to rise in the east every day, right? How do you know that an asteroid can't come take out the Earth? And that's essentially the problem of Earth and induction in a nutshell, is you don't ever know that something is certain. And this is actually the foundation for the scientific method. Because you don't know that anything is certain, the only way we really know something is repeated iterations of the same experiment. And we can get closer and closer to the probability that something is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I believe in absolute truth as an inference. Okay, because it is always the case in every known instance so far in human history that 1 + 1 = 2. However, we do not know of a math, that does not mean it doesn't exist, in which 1 + 1 could equal 3, right? That's not to say that I can provide an example. I can't. That's why I use that example. But the example he uses is the pool table. When you hit a ball into another ball, you know it's going to curve off into the pocket or wherever it's going to go if you're a good enough shooter, I guess. How do you not know? I think his example is, how do you not know that lightning's going to strike right when you hit the ball? And therefore, you cannot guarantee that the ball's going to go in the pocket after you hit it.
See, I hear what you're saying, but to me, it's like I cannot fathom a hypothetical, which I guess that's the thing, is we can't imagine one, but where 1 + 1 would not equal 2, even hypothetically.
The only thing I could maybe think is it's a quantum theory. I'm going to fuck this up. Problem of observation or something like that. If you observe a particle,
that's the quantum
you can't
physics.
actually observe a particle.
Yeah,
right.
It changes where that thing would be.
When you observe it, you only see one. If you're not observing it, it actually splits and gets in two places, and that's
so. And so in quantum, something can be in two places at once. That's the kind of thing that makes me think, maybe 1 + 1 could equal 3. What if 1 + 1? What if 1 + 1 results in 2 and 1? I don't. Based on everything we know, that's my point of saying, in terms of what we know, there is such a thing as truth. However, there's no way for human beings to know all of the possible contingencies or exceptions for any given situation. We only know as much as we know, and we don't know what we don't know. Stupidest saying in the world, but technically logically correct.
Sounds like the difference in fact and truth.
Maybe.
Because
it's like personal truths and then universal truth.
And then
subjective versus objective.
Yeah. Well, the idea that if you don't know that 1 and 1 = 2, it's not a truth to you, even if it's a fact.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And that's a weird example to use because once you get taught it, but it's the whole idea. If you misbelieve something, if somebody believes a lie, it's a truth to them.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so I know what you're saying and I agree, but I tend to reject using the word truth for it.
Sure.
Right.
Because people my generation like to use the phrase "my truth."
Fuck
you.
Which is different from
I don't give a fuck.
Truth.
Yeah. Well, your truth. So benefit of the doubt in those situations, what it means is like, well, this is how I feel, and it's like, well, I don't care that you feel that way because that is not the truth.
Right.
So the only time you could have like something where it is truly your truth is if it's a situation in which we genuinely don't know what the answer is.
Right.
Do you want to be a doctor or do you want to go be a rock climber? that's really only for you to decide.
Right.
There is no truth to that.
Right.
So that's your truth, right?
Right.
But using the word truth would be a misnomer to me because the truth implies absolutes.
Right, and we'll
I agree
always
with
put
that.
it as saying, because people started using, well, my truth, I'd say, well, then fact.
Yeah,
Sure. Then you counter with, well, give me a fact. I don't want what is true to you. I want a fact that both of us can't.
Well, see, that probably makes you a nicer person to deal with than me then, because I just say fuck off.
So another segue.
I don't actually. I'm a pretty nice guy. People villainize me, you know.
Yeah. You've been a super nice dude the time I've been.
Yeah. I try. I mean, I believe I'm from the Midwest.
The problem is we live in a world where like there are that's what is it? Good times make weak men, hard times make strong men, something like that.
It's hard men make
Good
good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times.
Yeah.
And the snake continues to eat his tail.
And like the problem is we live in a world where there is stuff to be upset about. There are people to be upset at.
Absolutely.
Those people, by the way, Alice, are the government specifically.
Definitely.
Is who we should all be upset at. They try to divide us on any issue, whether it be race.
Wait, do you mean that we shouldn't be arguing about stupid, fucking irrelevant cultural issues that don't matter at all?
Dude, it blows my mind. It blows my fucking mind that people are still playing the left and right game.
Yeah.
That is not your democracy is a fucking lie.
Yeah.
This is one hand, this is other hand of the same thing.
Yep.
It blows my mind that people still do that. It's like, oh, this time's going to be different because we have insert the Democrat or Republican in office this time. Because, you know, that we've only been doing that for 170 fucking years.
Yeah,
like
it's stupid, man. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever escape from that. Human beings are a tribal animal.
Mm-hmm.
And even people like you and me who can sit here and point these things out from a distance, and you know, Neef as well. I mean, he's over off camera at the moment, so I don't want him to feel excluded. People like us can sit here and point it out and talk about the issues from a distance and agree on them. But that does not mean that we are not still subject to the same whims that other human beings are subject to. There are situations in which each one of us would find ourselves where we will act like the tribal animals that we were conditioned evolutionarily to be.
Yeah.
If you need proof of that, either go to a prison or go to a place where people are hungry.
If you push that way, it'll happen.
Tundra law, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, tundra law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lack of resources breeds a certain type of behavior.
And also, you start to break down what's really important.
Exactly.
You know, Alex was asking me the other day why I always say tundra, because, you know, it's cold. It's the worst you could be. So
it's barren.
The first thing, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So if you're cold, the first thing you got to figure out is, how do I warm up? Well, what the fuck are you going to warm up with? There's nothing.
Yep.
Then how are you going to build that fire?
Yeah.
How are you going to,
Absolutely. Well,
so all these medial problems that you can come up with every morning you wake up would never even enter the equation of life.
And so maybe this is a softer segue than I'm imagining in my head, and maybe not. But this is why I think that there was actually maybe a positive aspect to COVID and the lockdowns, and I prefer to refer to it as, lockdowns, because it wasn't COVID that did this to us; it was human beings. They fucked us over, and I'm not saying COVID isn't real.
I think both things can be true. There is a virus that exists, and the powers that be took that virus and made it something way bigger.
Took advantage of a situation.
To the advantage to take control of it.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So, anyway.
Just quick side note, they're doing the same thing with Queen Elizabeth right now, where they're cracking down on protests and changing the way you can talk about shit. Because it's like...
Yeah, that's been a weird situation for me, because my whole life I've just not cared about the monarchy at all. But then I realized, when she passes, A, it's the end of an era, B, it's... apparently it meant something to the British. I think it meant something to the West in general. I don't know, because, you tell me if you've been researching it at all, because I have been just not interested in the royal family since I found out about it.
Yeah, I couldn't give less of a fuck about any politician or monarch.
Yeah.
They can all go rot in hell.
Yeah. At the same time, if you're a libertarian and you're not willing to cross the aisle into his anarchism. You're admitting the need for government.
Sitting existing politicians.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm with you.
Yes. But okay, so what I was saying about the pandemic and whatnot is I think that one thing, and this is harkening back to the tundra law or what people do when they're hungry or scared. Los Angeles was particularly rough with it, right? You guys definitely got a little bit of shit out of here, but you loosened up restrictions way quicker than we did.
Except for the fact that we now make it a felony to camp in a fucking state park, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
Is that a result of COVID?
It's a result in our influx of homeless situation and, our greenways being campgrounds, which, and people being out of work and people losing their homes.
So it's almost necessary.
So it's like...
Sucks.
Yeah, and
state parks you should be able to camp in.
Right. It's supposed to be, national parks. Remember this, Alice? National parks are legal to camp anywhere in them unless they've changed that. But always legal to camp in a national park. You can pull over on the side of the road and fucking camp if you're driving through a national park.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about how many people go fucking missing at Yellowstone?
No.
It's a lot.
There's a lot of parks and places like in, upstate New York where all the woods are up there. They say shit happens up with a lot of people up there
really?
Go hiking and
just disappear.
Yeah.
There's like conspiracies of fucking like groups of people living out there. This like off the grid.
I mean, I don't believe any of that, Alex. Hey, you want to take a trip up?
I mean, there's people who figure shit out as far as getting off the grid. Well, let me. Sorry, not to derail from that.
Sorry, we got off track. Go
No. I was just saying. I was probably being long-winded in terms of getting around to what I was saying, which is one thing that was good about the lockdowns is that it caused me to reevaluate pretty much every aspect of my life because I was forced into non-existence for almost 2 years. Granted, I didn't follow the lockdown measures. I didn't follow the mask rules. I defied everything I could. But Los Angeles made it impossible to go anywhere and get a beer, play a show, buy clothes, all of that. So that kind of shit, like I didn't realize how, depressed and angry it made me until after the fact, because while you're going through it, you keep your head down and you just take it one day at a time. Because first they said 2 weeks, then they said a month, then they said, hey, fuck you, we'll tell you when you can go back outside.
Meanwhile, your politicians out there were living it up.
Well, they're just a joke, man. Gavin Newsom's going and buying $3,000 plates at French Laundry.
Yeah.
Dude, see, I can't say what I want to say because this is going to go on YouTube, but it has something to do with violence. I am not a pro-violence person. I'm just saying, like,
I've had a...
How many fucking lives did they cost with their fuck-ass goddamn draconian measures,
Yeah.
That shit should not make you so angry that you react like me. It should make you angry enough that people like me shouldn't get stigmatized for saying this shit. It's insane.
You had that shirt the other night, kill all politicians.
Yeah.
This is something I've been trying to figure out how to talk about to Alice. Because it's like, I don't want to overstate how I feel about this.
You can't say it on YouTube. I know that. Apple will probably flag you.
The most eloquent way I've found to talk about it is we are not... The powers that be are never going to hold themselves accountable.
Nope.
We have to hold them accountable.
Yep, the people are the check on the government.
And it's our fault that they have overstepped their bounds.
Yeah, well, and I want to be excessively clear. I am not advocating violence whatsoever. I actually do not. The problem is that it's an actually complicated situation that would be cool to talk about and get people involved in, but it has contingencies and it has dangers. There's a reason you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Mobs act crazy. The rule with mobs is insanity, right? So to me, I still say, don't take to violence. Utilize the systems that exist and try to work within them. That being said, there's a bunch of stuff that could be discussed, just not probably in this forum where it's like, you'll just get I'll definitely get taken out of context, so I'll refrain from saying certain things. But to me, it's still what it's worth is at this point, we are on the precipice of something crazy, but social media and media make us feel like shit is way crazier than it is. So it's very hard for me to see through and see what is real and what is not. I'm not sure how much of this is manufactured. And once enough is manufactured, enough people are mad about it, it doesn't matter if it's manufactured or not. They've made it real. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So to me, are they like? Is the media just whipping up? Going back to the
it's exactly what they want. They want you. Oh fuck!
You're right. So nothing's really all that bad.
God damn it!
But they're but those forces.
It's fear mongering.
Exactly. They're
this
praying.
is exactly what they want.
Yeah,
it's
praying.
Like, no, we have to act. You have to do something.
And to help feed, and the perfect marketing tool is what they've always used, is making you as the customer or consumer feel like you are the most important to them. That is the best way to do any business, to sell to anybody, is to make every single customer feel like they're your favorite customer and are getting the best deal. So when you make the entire population feel like their word is important, social media, you get nothing but chaos, because everybody's going, well, no, I don't care about actually fixing the problem. I won't have any. I've come up with solutions and written paragraphs and arguments. And when I finally get past all the you're this, you're that, you're this, and somebody finally quips up and says, well, what do you think about a solution? What do you suggest with whatever topic? And I say, well, let me think, and I break down a paragraph. Everybody goes quiet. I don't get people turning around and going, well, actually, that's a good idea. Everybody gets quiet because they can't argue with me, so they've got nothing to say. And it's no fun for them anymore because I gave them a solution.
Yeah.
And now they've got nothing to bitch about.
Well,
their word isn't important.
Did you ever see, it's an animated movie, it's The Incredibles?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you'll note that the bad guy in that film is, I can't remember.
An incel.
Well, no, I mean, that's...
Oh, is that what you were going for?
No, not necessarily, but that's not even that far off. The bad guy, what I was going to say, is somebody who says, once you find out his motivation for being so evil, he says, because if everybody's a hero, then nobody is. That's what social media is making people feel like. Everybody wants to have their voice heard. Nobody has a place, an audience. Nobody has a forum. So social media makes everybody feel like they're a fucking journalist or a musician or a whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the bad guy from that movie. And Pixar was right to make him the bad guy. If everybody's a hero, nobody is. That's the push towards communism, the push towards just flatlining everything and making everything a gray blob, is if no one's spectacular, then nothing's interesting. And not everybody can be spectacular. And here's what I've noticed. Michael Malice makes this point. Stupid people, I mean idiots, I mean like just not high IQ. Stupid people are actually usually wise enough to know that they're stupid. Maybe there's a cutoff there somewhere, but they're usually wise enough to know that they're stupid. And so they go, well, I might not be the smartest, but so I know I need to take extra time to learn this thing so I can do it right next time. They know. They're wise enough to know that they shouldn't act like people way smarter than them because it won't work. They will not succeed.
Yeah.
Midwits is what Michael Malice calls them. Yep, that's not my term. He calls them midwits because it's super insulting and trolling.
Can I bum another beer from you?
Yeah, of course, dude. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you.
Just ask. I got two more afters. Do you need to open?
Yeah.
So whose podcast is this? I'm just fucking around.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So he says the concept of midwits is basically the people who are of average intelligence, but they hang out with people who are slightly less intelligent than them. So they start to develop an idea that they're the smartest people they know. So when they meet smarter people, they think they can keep up and sometimes realize that they can't. So they develop a complex where they think they're smarter than they are. And so what we have now is a bunch of fucking midwits running things where it's just like, dude, you're not that smart. And you keep acting like you're brilliant because we praise the almighty dollar and you made a couple fucking million easy.
It's like when someone's charisma is higher than their intelligence. It's like, that's what a con man is. The word con and con man comes from confidence. when you have more confidence than
Confidence,
you are
man.
and when more confidence than you are intelligent. You don't actually know what you're doing, but you have everyone convinced that you know what you're doing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that. Well, the world's full of con men, and here's the thing. Here's what I was saying about midwits and idiots. You don't have to be a fucking genius or even that smart to be able to recognize a con man. Some of the dumbest people I know, I like because they'll just be like, well, I might be a dumbass, but even I know that smells like shit. And it's like, yeah, because it's not an intelligence thing. It's like, are you honest with yourself or not?
Yeah. Do you have eyes?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. All of these people, I'm getting worked up about it. Sorry.
Let's get worked up about
Fuck yeah! All of these people are kidding themselves. Like these, like, okay, so the woke motherfuckers and all these people, they have no concept on reality because they have no idea who they actually are as people. They've denied so much bullshit to themselves. It's all psychological projection. Every time they accuse you of doing something, they're the one doing it.
Yeah.
Every single fucking time. There's no exception. And like, so if you live in a web of denial like that, I mean, and why wouldn't they? A lot of them have been raised by these goddamn helicopter parents who, you know. Yeah.
I made a point the other day to somebody when they were talking about something online, and it didn't even have, they're actually more to that side, but they were talking about somebody being upset, and I said, you know, people, it hurts people real bad when they find out they've been fooled.
Yes.
It's easier to deceive someone than it is to convince them that they've been fooled.
Because it's one of the most painful, embarrassing, you know, shit sandwiches to fucking eat.
Now you're talking my language. That I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if I told you that.
You did. I don't believe we got into it extensively, but I believe I said I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was bad that I was Catholic.
I was also homeschooled, so like everyone I knew was in my church.
Wow, that's interesting.
And when I turned 18, I moved out and like was shunned by people I knew. So, but that's it, Neef. It took me even after I left, it took me a long time to figure out. I'm like, these people are not dumber than I am. Like my parents are not. I'm 18. What the fuck do I know, right? These people are not. So what is it? Why am I seeing shit that they're not? It's because they've been in it so long. It's way harder to tell someone that they're wrong than it is to make someone wrong.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's the human imagination is that fucking powerful.
Yeah, I think.
So is the ego.
I want to comment on.
This just goes back to what you're saying about artists. They destroy themselves because of that. That ego destroys the real creativity because you're too busy trying to convince yourself. These people running around yelling at you, they're not trying to convince you of what they believe or you. They're trying to reaffirm to themselves. Yeah. Banked off of you and their disgust for you.
Well, you know, and they're, you know, these.
Well, they're made up disgust because they're, you know, most of them are in here.
And these people are, you know, I mean, it's the issue is they're so wrapped up in, beyond ego, it might be narcissism. There's an psychotic level of self-obsession that happens, and you know, all I can really say to that is if you spend your life jacking off, all you're going to end up with is a bunch of scabs. You're not going to get anywhere, man. No one wants to watch that. Like,
that's hilarious.
But there's also a certain amount of narcissism that it takes to drive someone to want to be an artist. So it's so that's why these people are crazy. Of course they're crazy. Let them be. Well, don't encourage it, but like to some degree, we should be thankful for their contributions because they're killing themselves to make some of this stuff.
And to some degree, I think everyone I've ever met is mentally ill.
And I was going to bring that up when you say crazy, because now crazy is considered, you know, back years ago, people would be like, oh, I'm crazy.
It's this world, man.
I tell people all the time, people that are actually crazy don't know that they're crazy.
Yeah.
What worries me is that when you're around a bunch of people that just seem like they are bonkers and you feel like you're perfectly sane, that is when you start questioning sanity. But
I think sanity is a spectrum. It's not like you're insane or sane. It's like we're all, this world is fucked up.
Well, they talk about chemical imbalances and people, and I always just say, well, who did they use for the standard level?
They used someone who they needed to sell pills to.
You know what? Your levels are off. That's it.
I'm not kidding. So, I mean, unless I'm segueing away from where you want to go.
No, go ahead.
So I studied cognitive neuroscience and psych in school.
I was going to ask you what you.
There you go. Yeah, brains shit.
That's awesome.
It's just stupid, and I mean, it's gotten me so far.
No, I bet it was neat to learn about.
It's gotten me a lot of debt. Yeah. No, it was amazing to learn about. It's fascinating. The only reason I didn't go further with it, because I was good at it. The only reason I didn't go further with it was because the rigors of the academic system. There was something about the academic system that I just did not feel like I was a fit for it. It stifled my ability to learn and be imaginative more than it didn't.
Yeah.
Provided me great resources, though. I have a lot good to say about it and a lot bad. So, where the fuck were we before that?
When you took neuroscience.
Well, I studied neuroscience, right before that. This happened to Josh, too. I heard it on his episode. I was like, that's not going to happen to me.
What happens in the rabbit hole?
Well, I'm great with it.
You get to tumbling.
Well, I can probably spitball something from here. Let me think. Damn.
We were talking about the ego and
narcissism,
and that's what pretty much.
Oh, I remember. Okay, so we were talking. That's exactly how it happened to Josh too.
While I'm the one that knocks people off, I'm usually the one that brings them back.
There's a special talent there. So we were talking about like chemical imbalances and stuff like that.
Right.
So when I was in school, I remember talking about, learning about mental disorders, specifically depression, whatever. I've had, recurrent depression my whole life. I also don't like to say it like that because what I've noticed is that if I change certain behaviors, diet and food, if I change certain ways of thinking about things, if I discipline myself into patterns of...
There's that word.
Yes, discipline. I know, it's a dirty word. It's racist, actually. Did you know that? So is being on time. There he goes. All right, yeah. There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Good Foerg, everyone.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So if you discipline yourself into certain habits of mind, into certain patterns of thinking, you can beat depression, at least in my case. And I'm telling you, I was a pretty severe case. Like one where you would have looked at it. My first time that I went to the therapist, they told me if I feel like you're suicidal, we have to commit you. Right? I'm not feeling bad for myself. I'm just telling you what happened. So they also, on that first time that I went to see the therapist, they prescribed me 4 different medications. One time, man. One time.
One visit?
Damn.
It was an SSRI. It was like I can't even remember which SSRI. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It's the modern, antidepressant. It's not Wellbutrin, so it's not a dopamine thing. It's a serotonin thing. Then there was Adderall. Then there was
they love to hand them. Adderall's generic name, Alice, is amphetamine.
Yep, amphetamines. And don't get me wrong, it was great stuff. But
Adderall's fun.
Yeah, Adderall's cool.
Don't do it though, Alice.
Yeah, you can geek yourself out, man.
Yeah,
and I did. And Xanax, and then I can't remember.
Benzodiazepines.
Yeah, benzos.
Yeah,
so
another,
literally the Michael Jackson just ups and downs. Yeah. Okay, so I took them all one day, and that was enough for me to just be like, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore. So I just started like literally bootstraps. Here we go. Not everybody has that opportunity. I understand that, Alice, but I did. So cool. So I started doing it. It wasn't easy. It sucked. Basically what I did was I challenged myself to do things that I was uncomfortable with. I forced myself into discomfort. And because I was so depressed or whatever I was uncomfortable with everything. So it was really easy to find things I was uncomfortable with.
It's like muscle memory. It's like working out.
Yep, exactly. I literally
you lift. It ain't comfortable to lift.
Exactly.
Until you start building that muscle.
Yep. So I started by going to the cafeteria because I was agoraphobic almost. Go to the cafeteria one day, you're going to be horribly uncomfortable. Okay, then go 2 days from now. Next day, take the bus. With just small, dumb shit. I'll pass it. That's good weed. And tobacco. Alice, sorry. I forget we're in Tennessee.
That's some CBD that we grow right over on the moon.
This is some shit we found in the backyard.
Moon CBD.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I remember learning about these chemical imbalances. Well, about a month ago, I read this article that comes out from a publication that one of the labs teams I was part of when I was studying neuroscience always said was like the premier Nature. And it says, new studies find that decreased dopamine levels are not actually what contributes to depression. And I was like, yeah, given what just happened with all these fuck-ass vaccines, I think I can believe that. I can believe that they would have fabricated out of whole cloth something that was believable enough, but got people fucking hooked. Do you realize how many people get on antidepressants and never get off them? They never get off them.
Well, I said all the time, you break your leg and you go to the doctor. He fixes it. You're pretty much done with it.
Right.
You go to a psychiatrist. Most everybody I know goes to a psychiatrist. They never get to the point where they're like, you know what? You're done with the medications. You're done with everything. Don't need to see you no more.
Well, how would they make money if they fixed you?
You know what? I don't need your money anymore.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist, you mean drug dealer?
I'm trying to lower my patient list here. I'm doing so good at fixing people. I've got so many patients coming in. We can just move you on out. You're doing good. You're fine now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It was uncomfortable. So to me, okay. So they talk like a lot about like this red pill shit, and was there a moment, whatever, blah blah blah. So growing up, I think I've always been like libertarian, bucket politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was more sympathetic to liberal stuff when I was younger. Big shock, I know. When you're young, you're liberal. When you're old, you're Bobby. But my friends were always the creatives because I'm a creative. So the creatives tend to be more on the left. Okay, well, this is the people we get along with. I would always get in arguments with them, because I didn't know it at the time, but I was coming from a libertarian perspective. They're coming from a liberal perspective. Fine. I have friends who are conservatives, but during that time, at my age, that was the 2000s, the Bush years. I didn't fucking like Bush. I still don't fucking like Bush. And I thought, fuck conservatives at the time. Although I had friends who were conservatives because I never thought, hey, you voted for this guy, therefore I can't like you. Fuck that. Do you have a good reason?
When I was coming up, nobody liked any politician in general.
That's nice.
I mean, as youth, that's what always got me is I didn't understand, high school kids and stuff talking about, and that's why maybe I've just been a little anarchist,
Yeah.
Since I've known what it meant.
So can you? Okay, so I should probably finish what I was talking about first because I was about to ask you about anarchy because I'm fucking fascinated.
Me and him argue about this all the time. Because that's where we agree about most shit, but that's where
we gotta go there.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Alice.
But finish what you're gonna say.
Ben has set this as the aisle now.
Yes, apparently, yeah.
Crossing the aisle.
Crossing the aisle. Yes, I am the Rubicon. I want that shirt. I am the Rubicon. Cross me and you fucked up. So growing up, it was always arguing with religious conservatives where I was just like, you're just a fucking zealot. That's all you are. Now it's arguing with woke leftists. You're just a fucking zealot. That's all you are. And the conservatives are the ones who are like, well, we might not agree with you, but I will let you say what you fucking want to say. And it's like, this is blowing my mind because my favorite comedians, Carlin, Pryor, all those guys, are definitely on the left. The left used to stick up for that. Now the right's doing it. This is weird. I met this guy in Los Angeles who is literally a conservative Jew. Great fucking dude. I love him. I won't name drop him because I'll probably get him in trouble just for mentioning it. But he is definitely conservative, MAGA conservative, Trump, all that. And that's fine. And we bonded on a lot of stuff. But, then it came to certain things and he's like, well, drug use. And I was like, yeah, I'm pro all of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not pro, not to say that you should just go do all of it.
You should be fucking allowed to.
You should be allowed to, exactly.
Yeah. I don't need Big Brother to fucking tell me what I can put in my body.
Yeah, but they need to tax it. Yeah. And but what do you mean it's not legal? How could they tax it? Yeah, they're the ones fucking selling it. You do realize this.
Yes, they get it on both ends. I can tell you
now, Nancy Reagan and Just Say No did not convince me to not smoke crack.
Dude.
The name alone and crackheads pretty much did the job of convincing me to not smoke crack.
Yeah, crackheads are not a good advertisement.
Yeah, you ever met crackheads? Yeah. Crack doesn't look fun.
It doesn't. It's just not appealing to me.
No, exactly. Well, and Dare, the program that I was in when I was a kid, Matt Groening did the illustrations for the animation for it. So the acid one, I was just like, that looks amazing.
That's fucking cool.
And then the rest of it was Dare officers being like, I almost wonder if there was some troll, like some kid, 22-year-old who got hired as an intern at Dare to write the script for this thing. Because they started to say, and some people hide their weed in their, meat containers when they're driving across country. I'm like, that's brilliant. Why the fuck would
Holy shit.
Why would they tell you that?
Yeah.
Like, that's great advice. And then they make Matt Groening, the Simpsons animator, do the fucking...
That's awesome.
I want to do drugs.
This is like the best advertisement for doing drugs.
The drugs look amazing.
Yeah.
Like NWA said, we don't just say no, we too busy saying, yeah!
So...
About drinking straight out the 8 bottle. Do I look like a motherfucking role model?
That's great.
So there's a couple other things I want to talk about. So let's get into anarchy.
Sure.
I guess... You can take point on that if you have questions.
So here I will say that so when I was younger I heard about anarchy colloquially, which is the wrong way to hear about anarchy because most people think anarchy means chaos, which is the opposite of what it means. It just means self-governance.
Anti-Archon.
To oversimplify by a lot. I don't know if you have sympathy towards like ANCAPs or anything like that. I don't really understand that.
But
that one's weird to me too.
Anarcho-capitalist? Like you realize capitalism requires government.
Right.
The thing is, and I use Rasta as a good example because Rastas will call themselves Rasta, not Rastafarian or ism. And what I said, like capitalism, the ism is what makes capitalism bad. Anytime you ism something, you may, that's basically saying that's the center of my life.
I think I'm pretty sympathetic towards that.
So...
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with money.
I always tell
making
people,
money to carve your life is a
If
problem.
you're going to call it anarchy or anarchism, I call it what I think about as pure anarchism. Because, and I've had people tell me, well, you're just an ANCAP, or you're just a Echo An, you're just, and I'm like, there's really, when you put these little suffixes on it, it kind of takes away from what it is because the idea of an anti-Archon thought is you can look at it the best way a real easy way to look at it is like veganism, okay, or vegetarianism. All right,
you're gonna trigger me.
Well, think about what I'm saying is just think about this. And I've explained this to people when I go in and eat somewhere and I tell them, oh, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, and they're like, are you vegan? Are you vegetarian? Are you pescatarian? And I say no. I don't take a label.
Gotcha.
And say, this is what I am, this is what I'm going to do. I take my knowledge and apply it. So when you look at anarchism, think about that with your governance. It doesn't mean no leader. If I decide you're the best to lead this, whatever we're doing, that's fine, but I'm the one that decides that for me.
Okay.
So when you look
it's
at
like total independence.
So when you look at anarchism isn't a system. It is not an actual...
The lack thereof.
It is the lack of needing or somebody placing one in your way. Because systems are, if we go all hunted, then we'd have a system, an actual system. But a system of governance kind of will naturally happen.
Okay, so the way I would push back on that would be to say that, well, capitalism is at least... This is devil's advocate.
Right.
Capitalism is the system that arises that's closest to the system of nature out of the system of nature, and then they would argue that a system has to necessarily arise.
Well,
that's so that's where I also disagree with him. Is you in a family structure, if it's just you, your wife, and your child, that is a government.
Right.
That's actually a communist system because you're providing
family systems, right?
Yeah.
Socialist, yeah.
So the idea being with
there's a default when you don't have a system,
and that's what I say when you're applying anarchism as an ideal.
Okay.
It has to be applied to the government or a governance. Right. What I'm saying is being an anarchist to governance is I'm against someone telling me this is your fucking government.
So okay, so is it a moral position then, in that you're just like, I reject your authority to tell me anything like that? You understand the practicality of if they give you a bill and you don't pay,
it has to do with natural man human rights.
That's what I'm getting at.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't get behind that whole thing because I know the way the legalese is structured, you're fighting a lost cause to try to go into court and do
for
that
sure.
bullshit.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Sovereign citizen shit.
Yeah. The idea,
but it's moral, not legal, right? It's a moral.
Right. With me, it has to do with me as a living creature.
That's actually something I have not considered before.
And then they talk about God-given right. Well,
am I an anarchist?
Well, that's the thing is. Now, to really apply it, and if I really want to try to teach people a way of governance that they want to look into, it's called voluntarism.
Okay.
And
we're in Tennessee.
And
the volunteer state.
And that
does it have to do with this?
That was for
volunteerism is interesting. It's where our anarchy becomes redeemable.
Yeah, it's basically, and it's the greatest argument against people that are like socialists, because basically a socialist is telling you, look, we should all be giving to each other. And you're like, okay, I can agree with that. So if we can all agree with that, why do we need somebody telling us to do that?
Exactly.
So volunteerism means, okay, we all live in this little tribe.
And we're all going to give to each other.
We need a fucking path built. So we're all going to get up one day and go build a fucking path.
Do you think that, okay, so my question would be, is that philosophy scalable?
That's a good question.
That's
and I don't think as a society we know.
It seems like dwellings hit a certain size when they became like cities and whatnot, right. That like,
no,
sure, we all agree by the principle, but now people can slip through the cracks because you don't know everybody who lives in your community.
That's exactly right. I agree with that.
And they can steal and murder and rape.
Right.
And
when it's bigger than the people you know in your immediate surroundings.
Is when things are done small or started small. And one of the things that we also don't realize is that we understand this, but Alice might not pick up on this, that we were all taught that when Europeans came here, it was savages and these little tribes and nomads running around, and they didn't tell us about the Mound City in Alabama.
Right.
and the great nations that were in America.
Oh yeah.
Already. And so they weren't living in ultimate peace here.
No, not at all. Not
at all.
Slavery, fucking war and pillaging is insane. But
yeah, see, you were Iroquois. Your ancestors are Iroquois, right?
Choctaw.
Choctaw? Yeah. So your ancestors killed my Cherokee ancestors.
Well, I'm fucking straight colonist blood,
y'all.
And y'all fucking
you
savages,
both of us,
dude.
My Spaniard ancestors came over and killed some of my Choctaw ancestors, I'm sure.
You're not telling me that the rule in human existence is violence, blood, and like misery, are you?
No. What I am saying is,
because I'm saying
now the argument is when people say violence has never done anything, that's bullshit.
That's total bullshit.
That absolutely shaped this world.
Yep.
But
you could say this country or this world, yeah.
It is the perspective. Violence in nature, when a big cat runs down an elk, that's violent as anything, but we don't step in the way of that because that is the way of nature.
Yeah.
No, we film it from look how beautiful. Look how majestic.
Our problem is when we decide to separate ourselves so much from nature that we decide, okay, we've got different rules than nature around us.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And these rules benefit us and not nature. And it should be the other way around. And that's what I think a lot of more tribal, not just the natives here, but more tribal people that didn't get obsessed with all of the money, greed, and these types of things. I think currency, some could even argue there's some eco-anarchists and, or what are they, anarcho-prims or primitive anarchy, they call them, that they're like, why don't you go live in a tree? And the idea is that agriculture.
Yeah.
Agriculture was the first downfall because instead of just gathering and hunting, we started consolidating stuff and shaping the land for our need. But my argument against that is there's creatures in nature that do agriculture.
Well, absolutely. Well, and also like all you really have to do to argue against like pure naturalists is just like, I guess they're calling you the pure naturalist, so never mind. But have you ever looked into philosophy of science kind of problems at all? One being in specific, because it's a broad topic, but one being whether or not we as human beings are making progress.
Right.
So if we're making progress, that would imply there's a beginning and a potential end, or at least some vague thing light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Or are we just kind of like tumbling through?
Right.
You know, I tend to like progress is relative to the beholder, right? I mean, are human beings making progress? I mean, overall, by any available metric, yeah, sure, we are. Progress towards what? In George Carlin's words, plastic. Maybe the only reason we were put here was to create plastic, and now the world's killing us off. It needed plastic.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of the whole idea of progress. That reminds me of probably my favorite Omarosa song, "To What End."
Oh, nice.
And he says, progress is not progress, it's everlasting destruction. Technology is backwards.
Yeah.
Born of machine, worship machine, slave to machine, become machine.
We're definitely becoming machines. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
So, yeah, I mean, that's always been one of those duality of man things. It's like, we talk about Prometheus bringing the fire.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I think separates us, and that's our misuse of fire.
How'd you know I was going to go into?
Well, that's the Promethean myth is.
I really think the idea is where we screwed up is when we gained this knowledge that the other creatures didn't have, and then we looked at each other and said, and when we started harboring knowledge away from each other, that's when the trouble really began. Now we came out of the Industrial Revolution in the 90s. Mm-hmm. We started what was the information revolution. And people weren't even told this.
Right.
And it failed because they monetized information to the point of it being worthless.
Oh, dude, I remember the internet in the early days. It was fucking Wild West. It was badass.
And now they're trying to
saturated.
And now they're trying to go back to
like mostly porn. Well, still mostly porn.
Way worse than that. Just like snuff films and just any article you want to read from any fucked up
Nazi
Nazi
we're trying to get
history.
back to now is not we, but what they are trying to get us back to now is quelling that.
Yeah,
because it's out of control. Information's out of control.
Well,
but you can't put a price on it.
That's exactly. So humans tried to harness it. That's the Promethean myth, right? Once he's introduced to fire, he tries to control it, and he can't because it's something bigger than him.
Right. And we can control it. We've learned to use it, but the fact is instead
it'll burn you alive. Though.
We are trying to claim it as ours, away from each other.
Yeah.
All the knowledge that we have, you got to go pay for a college. That's why the whole idea of paying for college, absolutely somebody should pay for something in a free market society where it's provided. But you get into all these ideas of why am I working to pay for stuff that I didn't decide I wanted to pay for? You get all these weird things. So yeah.
Are you a taxation and theft guy? Fuck yeah, brother.
Absolutely. The idea being is that, if schools weren't government run, we wouldn't have to worry about the government controlling the knowledge.
Right.
And then if
I'd be fine with abolishing
if information was free and wide open, which most of it really is. It's
because of the internet. Yeah.
Well, the internet, libraries. I mean, there's very few infrastructure things that I really support. Libraries are one thing I've always supported because it doesn't take a government to do that.
Also, think about the people who are attracted to...
It can take anybody. Anybody can start.
The people who are attracted to working at libraries are typically, very studious people. And they are so committed to the preservation of things that existed that librarians are often the ones, as far as my understanding goes, who will argue against when parents are just like, we gotta get rid of Catcher in the Rye or something like that.
Fascinating.
Right.
It's like, no.
They're like, fuck you. No, we're not.
And sorry. And I mean, that's the thing is, think about the story of the Library of Alexandria being burned out.
Right.
Why in the fuck would that be burned out?
Mm.
Other than, think about Emperor Qin, who combined China.
It makes complete sense if you're a Chinese monarch.
He completely destroyed any history, for the most part, before him. That's why nobody knows what was going on in China before Qin, because he made sure to
it's
say, I am China.
It's that saying, knowledge is power. And if the people have knowledge, then they have power. That's exactly why you see corporate interest trying to control the flow of information on the internet right now. Because if people know, because you could go...
Even false information is information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's something. Somebody put it out there. I mean, God, I don't want to say January 6th. Something else that's less controversial. Fuck it, January 6th. If you could go to January 6th with your cell phone, film exactly what was happening, there you go. It's on my Facebook. If you ever want to reference what actually happened, you have to find this person who has not the full picture, but a part of the picture that is not filtered through MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Breitbart, Daily Wire, any of them. It's just raw video footage. That's all it is, untampered with. So there was like a 4 or 5 year period where the internet and social media allowed people to, like, some of the biggest people that we know now who are replacing legacy media are people who came up in that period, right around Occupy Wall Street to a little bit after. And they were getting really, really powerful, So then big, huge corporate interests, bureaucracies, international interests decided to start putting money into suppressing the free flow of information and trying to control the information to spin the narrative. And this all ties into exactly where you started with this podcast. They have a vested interest in controlling the behavior of people because they just need to keep them alive enough for long enough that they can spend their fucking money and work. Yes.
For tax cut.
Yes. Man, I don't understand why more people... I do understand, actually. Maybe that's the shitty part. I do think I understand why more people are not willing to just say this kind of shit. Because once you accept that this is true, you realize you're fucking alone in this world. You're alone. And therefore, the ultimate responsibility is yours. And that burden is too much for most people to bear because our society does not prop people up who actually accept responsibility. It villainizes them.
Yep. There's
It's scary. Fucking life's hard. Buy a helmet.
If you don't
bunch of pussies.
The government, they don't like that.
Exactly.
They don't like to be...
And that's why I'm sympathetic to anarchism. But I will say, before we segue hard away from anarchism, because I know you want to go somewhere else, the one thing... Michael Malice?
I believe so.
He's an interesting commentator.
I'm very bad with the names these days.
I mean, it's all good. He was on with somebody. I don't remember whose podcast he was on. I don't remember if it was him having someone else on. Somebody basically questioned him and said, "Still working? Alice, we love you."
Thanks for being here.
So... There's your bumper, by the way. Alice, we love you.
Yeah. We got to get this man a sticker before he leaves.
I got one.
Yeah.
I still have it. Yep.
Cheers.
I just put it on one of my guitar cases.
Awesome.
Yep. I endorse Rhetoric.
Fuck yeah.
So.
Cheers.
Oh yeah. Cheers. So Michael Malice was basically saying. Somebody asked him, like, well, if you got rid of police, then what? And he's like, well, people would police themselves. And, okay, fine. What would you call that group of police who police themselves? Police? That's kind of where I did. It's just like, the one thing that you...
COP is a acronym for Citizen on Patrol.
Yeah, exactly.
No shit.
Yeah.
No fucking shit.
Yeah. Police is just a derivative.
Municipalities are different. I mean, you go to different places. Some have magistrates. I mean, look at Louisiana. They have parishes, not counties.
Wow.
Right.
Things are funny when it gets into the legal stuff.
But here's what I'm saying is, like, I guess where I differ, like, so what I will say, I will cap off. Not and cap off, just regular cap.
Just regular cap. Not no cap.
Not to and cap off.
Yeah. I'll say you made me look at it in a way that was unique. I have not thought about that before, which is to think of it from a moral perspective as just like a position in relation to body politic or society or whatever. That's really interesting. Where I probably differentiate is where it comes to like, okay, it seems to me, and maybe I'm being cynical, but that a government or body of legislation is a necessary outcome of living in a society past a certain size. I think you could probably have an anarchist society that was like 150 people or less. But once you get past that, people start to forget people.
I would completely agree with you, except the caveat that it's, I would put it more specifically that it's like you always have a system of governance and it grows with scale.
Well, but maybe the question is like, when do you have to formalize the system of governance? Because if you're in a body politic that's small enough, there's a limit in anthropology, and I cannot remember the name of the limit. It's 150 people though.
We're an autonomous collective.
for people who, for how many people you can remember. On like an active, you can remember their name, you can remember what they do, you can like be friends.
There's a dude that talks about you should have 15 people in your inner circle, and then from there there's another amount to this circle, and then
that's based on this number.
Okay,
and this number is one that Alice, you can find it. This number is based on who am I talking to when I'm talking to Alice? Am I talking to the void?
You see, Alice is just sitting over there, staring at us like a lunatic.
Oh, okay.
Is what's happened. She just walked in.
She always tumbles down.
It's this weird little girl that's just been staring at us quietly this whole time.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, we're
she's kind of weird.
I guess
she's got thousands and thousands of faces.
I was trying to think of a better quote than we're mad. We're all mad here, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, we are.
Well, I certainly am.
Yeah.
Are you guys even here, man? Solipsism. Yeah.
Well, what a boring philosophy.
So boring, dude. It's like just whenever people bring it up, I'm just like, fuck off. You have not read enough philosophy to know that that's bullshit. Like, although it is interesting to talk about sometimes.
It's but it's irrefutable. You can't prove it wrong. You get the fuck out of here, nerd.
Yeah, well, you can't prove it. You can't prove anything because your whole philosophy is basically just nihilism. That's
like God.
I was about to say, how about the nihilism? What were you calling that?
Which one?
Solipsism.
Solipsism.
That's the belief that you're the only person that actually...
Everything is a projection of your imagination.
A solipsist, a nihilist solipsist.
That's just someone who... I mean...
They would just not think themselves out of it. They might prove Descartes right. Because they might not think and not believe shit so much that they just cease to exist.
He reached this other point one day on the couch, and he just wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, it's just like the anti-Descartes.
That's what the monks are trying to do in meditation, is get to a point of, I don't think,
it's not spontaneous combustion. It's like the reverse of that. It's not spontaneous, and it's not combustion. It's like this imbustion that they just disappear into.
Non-spontaneous implosion.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Just, whatever. I can't remember what I was trying to wrap up with. Whatever. Bring me to your next.
Go ahead, Neve.
It's getting on into it.
Yeah. I'm gonna wrap it up.
I'm fine whenever. Yeah, you guys just tell me.
So, I want to preface this. Something to ask everyone. Something I think about a lot. I want to preface it by saying that no one knows the answer. But do you have any ideas about what happens after we die?
No. Here's what I know. Oh, is that I know nothing? No, I think that there is a realm that exists that does not necessarily. So I do believe in God. I am not religious, so obviously my definition of God is going to be a little different.
Spiritual.
Yeah, sure. And I don't know why that sure came across as kind of saying me, but it was not.
Well, spiritual kind of sounds hokey.
Sure.
It sounds hokey, like crystals and
and I'm
not religious, but I'm spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. I'm vehemently against.
Well, fuck labels, fuck political and religious labels.
Well, no, I mean, I don't mind this one. I do believe in God. I was an atheist for a long ass time. I am not religious though, so it wasn't like when I thought, aha, there's a God. Like it's obviously I'm a pretty logical guy. It wasn't really a spiritual thing for me. It was more just like, I can't argue my way out of this one. The only person to ever start believing in God because of an argument. But no. It's to me, God is just, but we don't have to go through the definition. After you die. So I at least think that the human experience is something that is worth preserving, because whether or not it lasts forever. We should take this thing. We're part of a continuum that is way beyond us. Part of the reason I say I believe in God is because I believe that there are things that I would die for. Okay, that's God.
Oh, yeah.
That's all that is to me. It's not. I don't even know if it's an organizational principle. Maybe it is. I don't know if
It's
it's
very,
consciousness.
you know Jordan Peterson?
Yes.
That reminds me, it's very Peterson approach.
He's actually kind of the guy who got me back into believing in God. I did when I was younger. Then I was an atheist for like 10 years.
Oh, he's giving me a lot of insight on the scripture too.
He's just saying like the most basic shit ever, but he's saying it in a unique way. So
some of the most profound truths are simple ones.
Yes, absolutely. So to me, I just thought, okay, well, there's things that I would die for. I would die for my fiance. I would die for certain truths that I believe in. For instance, if you brought a gun to my head, like you have to make a pragmatic decision. But if war broke out and it was the fascists who are trying to take over this country, who might already have, versus the rest of us, because I'm not afraid of a civil war. I'm afraid of elites versus the people.
That's the thing. The government versus its people. That's the only actual battle.
Civil war is not the fucking battle. I mean, that might actually break out first because they're doing a pretty good job.
Got a lot of brainwashed idiots.
But so anyway, there's things I would die for. Okay, so what happens after you die? Hopefully you carry on positively in the memory of the people who you knew and affected. That's to me what happens after you die. I don't know if your spirit goes up into the great sky. I'm sitting with two Native Americans, so I don't know what you guys,
There's a piece of me that's Native.
Oh, I know. I'm really making a poor.
I'm only slightly more Native American than Nancy Pelosi.
What about Elizabeth Warren?
That's why Elizabeth Warren. They're all the same to me. Yeah.
And I don't blame you. They're all fucking amorphous blob who deserves to get something happen to him. In a non-violent way. And they okay. So I don't know. Obviously, you can't.
No one knows.
But
some people pretend they know and fuck those people.
I think that we are part of a thing that is much greater than us, and so I think that it is worth living the best possible life you can with the most information available, because what you do in this life will affect you afterwards, in the sense that, I mean, if you're narcissistic enough to care about your legacy, like, you don't want to die and be like, everybody's like, yeah, I mean, he was all right at art, but he was literally Hitler. I mean, he did kill 6 million. Yeah. You're literally known as the worst person. And I don't even care that much, but about what people think. But I care about the way that I affect whatever we're a part of. So I think that you should just make the best contributions possible. And it's not for the afterlife that you should do it. It's for the now that you should do it.
For me to kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me to kind of like sum up what you're saying, you don't have any speculation on what we can't observe, but based on what you can observe, you still want to be the best person you can because it does matter post-life.
Yeah, I think, well, it matters this life.
Or it matters to the people that are going to be around when you're gone.
Yeah, well, I mean. Yeah. And, maybe I didn't do
legacy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You should care about it.
Yeah.
Well, if you had people that you cared about in life, for instance, I care about you guys. I don't know you guys super well, but I care about you guys. Now, whatever that other guy was talking about, you have 15 people in your life. Those 15 people, for me, I hope to be able to leave them. Man, shit, if I could leave them with some money, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. If I could leave them with some, fond memories, that would be good. Right. How about some thoughts that change their minds?
Yeah.
That would be really
Change
good.
the way they
I
live
give
their
a
lives.
fuck.
Yeah.
But you should care about that in real time. You shouldn't be looking to the afterlife. This is where I think Christianity fucks it up.
You're right.
It's each one teach one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and right now, worry about your legacy, not just after you're dead.
Remember that,
Amen.
Alice.
Amen.
Always remember that, Alice. It's about the now.
So we will cut this part out if you're not comfortable talking about this, but have you ever done DMT?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I told you there wasn't anything I was uncomfortable talking about.
Cool. So the reason I
except for that weird sucking dick for meth phase.
Yeah. We cut that part out. You didn't hear that, Alice. Yeah. I know. So
I'm good whenever.
The reason I brought up the afterlife thing and also about universal truths is I was shown in a DMT trip once, which this is a drug trip, so take that how you will. I don't hold that as some.
Alice is very familiar with the story.
Yeah, so I'll make it quick.
I was going to say, you could rapid fire your last questions on me if we got a wrap. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So the I don't take this absolutely as a fact, but I was shown in a DMT trip that in the beginning consciousness arose out of nothing, and it looked around and it said, "I am profoundly alone."
I had that experience once on acid, where I just kind of it was before I started believing God, weirdly enough, and I don't believe in a personal God I can talk to, but there is some kind of connection to the great other, blah 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 blah. I did definitely have the thought once that I am profoundly alone. However, I think it's more your inner disposition informing your position in the world, and I think that's indicative of the fact that you should probably fill a couple of gaps in your consciousness and emotional well-being. That's kind of what I think that psychedelics are good for. They can tell you, if you're hearing that when you do psychedelics, it means you have a void in yourself that you have to fill. To me,
I mean, psychedelics is a very broad category.
DMT
so
specifically.
We're talking about DMT.
I've interacted with the machine elves and the aliens and all of that. I don't know what they are, but I think it's probably your consciousness trying to show you a mirror. And I mean, that's not to say that they couldn't be external, but to me, I think that you're looking at a projection of whatever it is that's going on within you. Because, unfortunately, I studied neuroscience, so I know that
unfortunately,
because in this sense, it limits me.
Science does destroy a lot of the fantasy.
So
it
I
does.
actually neither of those
physics kept me up nights and
to me, man,
threw a lot of fantasy
Physics
out the
fucked
window.
me up.
let me finish the anecdote first of all. So the what I believe happened is that the reason life exists is because the consciousness that exists wanted to go down and pretend that it wasn't alone. So I think you and I are literally the same person.
I mean, I'm not.
And I'm a determinist. I think what makes you and I different is our biology and also our experience.
I am definitely not antithetical to that perspective. I don't. Not antithetical. That's not the proper way to use that word. I am not opposed to thinking that we're all part of the same thing. I think more likely than not, we're all part of some kind of consciousness. There's a Bill Hicks bit that's great about that. It's called Just a Ride. Yeah. And I tend to emotionally resonate with that on a intellectual level. I don't know how to make it make sense to me. That doesn't mean it's not true. And on an intellectual level, I also don't know how to totally deny it. So
yeah,
I hate to say I'm agnostic on it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Even though I've shown that in a drug trip, it was just a drug trip. So, the reason I brought it up is that would be an example of 1 + 1 = 1 instead of 2. Because we're all the same thing.
Well, I mean, still.
Yeah, because you saw the concept of 2. So it's like the fact that we're sitting here implies multiple instead of singular.
Yeah, I mean, well, even if we're all part of the same thing, you're talking about categories. So you could add 2. How would you think about it? You could add 2. You could add 2 bottles of beer together, sit them next to each other, then you have 2 bottles of beer, right?
I see.
You can melt them down, reform them into a bigger bottle of beer. You have 1 bottle of beer. It's the problem of identity, really.
Sure.
Which is Theseus's ship or whoever. You take a plank from one ship and exchange it with another one. At what point does it become not the same ship?
Yeah.
I think it was Theseus.
That's considered a paradox, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, well, the problem of induction is something that you should look into if you were that, I guess, fascinated by what I was saying about epistemology and 1 + 1 = 2. Problem of induction is one of the hardest problems to solve. Anything epistemology. George Berkeley has a really good argument for why God must exist that I refuted in college and I still agree with. Despite believing in God, I think his argument's bad. God exists because if a tree falls in a forest and nothing's there, a tree couldn't have fallen unless God was there to see it. Like
nothing happens without
whoa,
observer.
goddamn, kindergartners have made better arguments.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
One last question. Do you have any ghost stories or anything that ghost story isn't adequate to what I'm trying to ask you? Are there any experiences with your life under hallucinogens or otherwise where something has happened that you can't rectify with logic?
An out of body experience would be the best one. I mean, there's no way to refute that. I don't even think I should say the drugs. It was nuts, and it's it's all out there. But I took them, and I mean, I understand that I could not possibly have been doing this, but I definitely thought and felt and am still in my body certain that I was about 6 feet above my head looking directly down on the fucking situation, detail to detail as it was. And I thought about it later. I was like, yeah, that book was on that table there. That fucking remote was right there. This music was playing. I had that weird bald spot right there on the top of my head. Like, and I saw myself hunching my shoulders and being uncomfortable because I'm so fucked up that I'm having an out of body experience right now. Probably putting my arm on my friend going, dear God, man, do we have any fucking Benzedrine? Like,
Yeah.
Palpitating, sweating up a storm. That is, I mean, not exactly addressing what you're trying to get at.
I think that's a good one.
But that, I mean, for as weird as that is and for as non-spiritual as that is an experience that I cannot explain because still when I think back to it, I'm like, detail for detail, I saw myself from above me.
Yeah.
What exactly does that say about what's out there? I don't know. I'll say I'm very curious and I'm open-minded, despite seeming like I'm closed-minded about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, you have your own opinions about things, but that's because you've thought about it.
Well, and I'm willing to develop them. I just need to hear better arguments than the one I have.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well, Ben, thank you so much for being here, man.
Dude, thank you for having me. Yeah.
Alice,
thank you both. Yeah.
Go check out The Absurd. Go check out Bentley Records and all of Ben's projects. And I would love to continue this conversation and have you on again sometime.
Oh, dude.
Definitely have.
Yeah, I'm gonna wander back.
We just scratched the
house.
surface already, so
probably drunkenly one night.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah.
In advance.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that.
All right, Alice.
But if I do, don't be surprised.
We'll see you next week. Links in the description below. Check out Ben. Bye. Woo!